Hey, it's Corey with Freedom Investing Group, and today I'm going to talk about some lessons learned with parks in the winter, particularly northern parks. It's been a pretty cold, pretty extreme winter this year, and we've definitely had some issues and some things that we're going to do different on the next park that we buy. So, thought I'd share those. Um, the key thing that has really taken up a lot of our time and energy and stress levels and caused us to lose some sleep and really run up some bills on the maintenance and utility side for us this winter has been water leaks. We've had a number of them, and I think the big lesson learned for me and us on this is that on the next park, we're going to pay a lot more attention not only to any park-owned homes as far as getting inspections done, but checking out the tenant-owned homes too. And I'll get into reasons why, but the key thing is that we're going to really be looking for is making sure there's no gaps in anybody's skirting. It's not just actually appearance. The skirting actually serves a very important function, keeping a little bit of heat underneath the home to help pipes from freezing. There's a number of things that we're going to be doing to upgrade our current parks so we don't have issues, or hopefully not at least as many issues next winter. We're going to try to winterize. We're going to put a big emphasis on winterizing particularly our Minnesota parks for next winter. So what's the issue? The issue is the way it works. You've got an underground pipe coming along. It's down. Hopefully, if it's built correctly, low enough. It's your main water line is below the frost line, so it's not going to freeze. But at some point, that pipe has another pipe called a riser that branches off of it and comes up. And the riser has to come above ground because the home is above ground, and you got to get the water up there. So what happens is if you don't do things right, that riser or the pipes at the home or that riser connects into the home's pipe plumbing system, and so that riser and the home's plumbing system, which is all underneath the home behind the skirting, so homes are raised up a couple feet, will freeze and burst, and then once it unfreezes a little bit, begin to gush, and your water meter will start spinning, and you will have to have a plumber out there in the snow, in the cold. Nobody likes to be working in those conditions, so everybody charges enough money to make it worth their while. If they can't figure it out. Now, if you can get to it in time, if the resident notices, oh, hey, my sinks aren't working, they can get down there. You can get someone out there with a heater to actually melt the pipe, or even I've even heard, of residents getting down with a hair dryer to try to defreeze that pipe before something bursts. So there is that. So that's option number one, is just warm that pipe up as quick as possible. And so what would you do to prevent this? We've done a bunch of research on this, talked to a bunch of other owners up there, and some of this is common sense, but you would, a couple things. You want that riser to have insulation and heat tape, and same thing on the resident side. You want them to have insulation and heat tape on their plumbing, and that's their deal. But it can still affect us, because if it freezes up there, the freeze can actually, even if you have your insulation on the riser, the freeze can actually work its way down and still mess up your portion of the pipe too. And you could argue maybe that's the tenant's responsibility if that happens, but it's hard to figure out. It's hard to really determine it, and a lot of the residents are on a fixed income and don't have the money to deal with stuff, so it still becomes your problem. So the key things are insulation and heat tape. So the heat tape goes inside the insulation. It's just basically an electric coil that gets plugged in, that creates some heat, and then the insulation keeps that heat in there to help the pipe. So that's thing number one. And then thing number two is the skirting on the home. There's two things you can do with the skirting. So one is just to make sure that there's no gaps in it, just letting the draft come in and freeze all the pipes. Because we had a few homes where they had insulation and heat tape and they still froze because there was a gap in the skirting, so the cold air came in. So you want that insulation, the skirting sealed all the way around, because you're going to get some heat because they're heating the home, right? So some of that heat comes down through the floor. It's not going to make it balmy down there, but it does heat up somewhat the space below the home if you have the skirting there to contain that heat. The other thing that we're going to do on all the park-owned homes, at least, is make sure that it's not just skirting, it's actually insulated skirting. So it's skirting with insulation behind the skirting so that it forms this nice insulated barrier there. You've got the warmth from the house coming down. That should, in most conditions, keep that area below the home from getting cold enough to freeze those pipes. And then you've got your insulation and your heat tape as well. So that's what we're going to be doing on our park. We're going to be doing an inspection of all the homes, tenant owned, park owned, everything this spring and summer, and going through making sure all the risers are insulated, the heat tape's on, the skirting's fixed. And anybody who needs if it's a tenant-owned home, anybody who needs to fix their skirting, we're going to be giving them violation notices that they need to do it. And we'll see. Hopefully, my hope and dream and goal is that next winter we don't have so many Saturday bursted. It seems like they always happen on a Saturday. I don't know what was Saturdays colder or what, but it's always on a Saturday when the things burst, and then no one can get to it, and I don't know. Anyway, hopefully next winter we have much less problems. And then on the next property we do due diligence on, I've added that to our standard checklist of things to get inspected out there is the winterization of all the risers, insulation, heat tape, skirting. That's it. We'll see how it goes next winter. Cheers. Out.